Hello all, welcome back to Time to Dice, where we do something new and hope that people are still interested. Right off the bat, yes, the title of this video is correct. But if you came here to listen to a 500 subscriber channel make a hit piece on the game they've built their entire channel around, well, now's your chance to leave. And for those of you who clicked on this video thinking I've purposefully destroyed Paizo from the inside by making bad character builds in the hope of harming the second edition perception of a heavily balanced game, I've got news for you. My builds are bad, all on their own, no ulterior motive needed. Instead, in this video, I wanted to take the opportunity to thank the 503 subscribers who watch us regularly, while at the same time talking about the impact that Pathfinder has had on my life. So, me and my six closest friends sat down in fall break in my best friend's basement and ran our first session of Pathfinder ever. We started in a tavern, of course, before teaming up to explore some nearby ruins, where we uncover a hidden cult. I still have that session burned into my memory all these years later. From the mechanical things, like my character being one of the few who could read the draconic script on the ruins, to us discovering midway through the session that if we placed the translucent plastic dice on our flashlights from our phone, it made really good atmospheric lighting. Needless to say, I came out of that session knowing that this was something that I wanted to do as much as I could forever. So, of course, we never played again. I mean, what could I expect, really? There were 7 of us with high school commitments, most of which didn't even have a car yet. Getting a consistent schedule together was not possible. But I knew that I had to play this game as much as I could. So, I decided to get a smaller group together, build new characters, and try it again. I don't remember that session nearly as well as I did my first session, but I do remember it falling apart just as quickly. But over the next couple of years, I would try again and again and again to get a consistent game going, almost always being met with failure. And at one point, I even had the bright idea that I would host a Pathfinder session every single week, and I would simply run a campaign for any particular combination of friends that could make it that day. And I don't mean a West March style, we did what we did regardless of who showed up. I mean, if friend A and friend B showed up, we would run one campaign. If friend A and friend C showed up, we'd run a different campaign. If friend B and friend C showed up, we would run yet another different game. Needless to say, this led to a lot of confusion and did not work out. It very quickly became clear that a consistent group together with my friends just wasn't going to happen. So I turned my eyes to the next best thing, my family. I started a session with my younger brother and a son of my mom's friend who happened to live next door. It was only a 2-person party, but because they were always around, I had the consistency that I had been seeking for so long. And the best part is, they had no idea how to play the game. So the fact that I had no idea how to play the game and was basically just making up the rules as I went along was never known to them. This was Pathfinder First Edition. There was no way I was memorizing the rules for how 2-weapon fighting worked. I was even able to get my best friend in on the game a little bit later when he got his own car. I don't remember much about the campaign, but I do remember his character. He played a half-orc, monk, multi-class barbarian, multi-class undead sorcerer. Don't ask me how it worked, because it did. Finally, by my senior year, I managed to put together another group of friends that could play semi-consistently, and I took them through a campaign that, well, it directly ripped off the plot of Final Fantasy IV, because I was, at this point, not very creative. At this point, I discovered that most of Pathfinder rules were online for free, and I'd gotten a decently firm grasp on the rules. And I almost figured out how 2-weapon fighting worked. Almost. I was pretty confident that this game was going to be a regular part of my life for the foreseeable future. And then college happened. Now, all throughout high school, I had been one of those kids who was able to succeed on very little effort. Studying was essentially a foreign concept to me. My homework was usually completed by the time the bus got to my house. At that point in my life, I considered myself pretty smart, and I thought that I could handle anything life could throw at me. College changed that notion real fast. Between the lack of structure and the harder workload, plus the fact that I was working 2 jobs, one for my housing scholarship and another because, well, I found that job before I realized I had to have the other for my scholarship and was too socially awkward to not take it. So for my first 2 years of college, Pathfinder kind of fell by the wayside. I tried for a little while to keep an online game going, but it fizzled out pretty quickly. But that didn't matter, right? There would be plenty of time to play Pathfinder later on in my life when I graduated with a degree of chemistry and had a successful job. That's what I told myself. But as it turns out, chemistry is hard. There's like atoms and stuff and math. And well, let's just say college wasn't like high school. If I wanted to succeed, I had to study. And something that I had not yet realized was that studying is a skill that I had not developed in my time during high school because, well, I thought to myself, why would I ever need it? I had already known everything I had needed to know, or was easily able to pick it up upon hearing it once or twice. And to make matters worse, I didn't really have time to study because of the aforementioned two jobs I was working. Long story short, I was in for a rough 2 years. My grades started slipping, which was difficult for me because I was trying my hardest. I had gotten bad grades before, but it was usually because I let myself get complacent and let my grades fall by the wayside. Usually, I picked myself back up well before it became an absolute problem. But now, my grades were falling even as I was trying my absolute hardest to get them up. I was met with challenges that I couldn't just brute force my way through. I fell into a spiral thinking that I wasn't good enough and I wasn't smart enough to succeed. And honestly, it was rough. But then the most amazing thing happened. The woman who I would go on to marry transferred to my college and changed my life. Now, me and my wife have known each other since we were like 11. We met in Sunday school, and she knows me better than I know myself. She could see how bad I was struggling. But another thing about my wife is she's a social butterfly. Like, most days I'm good hanging out, maybe text a friend, I'm good with that. But she can bump shopping carts with someone in Walmart, and she's found a new best friend for life. So when she comes into the picture, she kind of drags me out of my shell for the first time in a long time. She dragged me out of my shell for the first time in a long time. And let me tell you, I desperately needed it. And she had an idea. What if we put together a Pathfinder group, like the old times? Now, full disclosure, I had tried to get my wife into Pathfinder several times before this, and she has always hated it. Mostly because of me. Like, the first time we played, I sat her down at a table full of my friends who had been playing for a while. I played the game, and they were all pretty much as experienced as me, so she felt a bit excluded. And then we tried again. We did a small party with just me and her, but the GM we picked didn't really have any experience GMing, and it kind of hurt the experience. So, I knew getting a Pathfinder group together wasn't something she was doing because she wanted to do it. She was doing it for me. So I said sure. If she got something together, I would GM it. Well, she went above and beyond on the getting a group together thing because I kid you not, I sat down at the first session with 10 players plus me as a GM. So, of course, I sit down at the first session knowing full well what happens when a party this large. So, I didn't really put much investment into it. But another thing about my wife, when she starts something, she does not quit. This campaign lasted from that first session through a year and a half, and we ran those characters from level 1 to 20 in my first time ever completing a campaign from level 1 to 20. Now, sure, by the end of the campaign, that group had dropped from 10 people down to just my wife and two others. But we didn't care. We had defeated Karzuk, the Rune Lord of Greed, and we had never felt better. Even my wife, who had previously hated the game, had fallen in love with it. This campaign my wife had started had opened the door for Pathfinder to walk back in and take back over my life. And because we all lived on the same campus, we didn't have to worry about scheduling. We'd play 2 to 3 times a week. It was crazy. Sometimes we played to 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. I remember a time during final weeks where we played a 2 hour session during the day, only to take a break to take a final, only to come right back up and finish up the session. Well, would you believe me if I told you that with the new happier mindset I had found, that I was able to go back to classes happier and healthier, and they actually became easier for me? Well, you probably shouldn't. As it turns out, devoting all of your spare time to either playing a game or preparing for that game doesn't leave a lot of time for studying. My grades, which were already lagging behind, mind you, began to slip further. But the interesting thing is, I didn't feel as bad because I no longer had my net worth tied up in whether or not I was succeeding in classes. Now, let me stop right here and say this. I would not recommend following in my footsteps. I ended up dropping out of college, and I still have my fair share of college debt to show for it. I don't think anyone can look at the choices I made throughout college and say they were wise decisions. Absolutely not. But through this game, I found myself reevaluating my life. For the first time ever, success to me did not look like having a nice job or a house or money or any of that stuff. For me, success didn't look like having a nice job or a nice house or a lot of money. I was able to make enough money to put food on the table and a roof over my children's head, and to take every other opportunity that I had to build relationships that I have established with the people that I care about, the people that I have played this game with. Yes, obviously I shouldn't have put myself into so much debt to come to that conclusion, but I don't regret a single choice in my life. I look around at my amazing wife and my two incredible children, and I don't think that there was a different path that I could have taken in my life that would have brought me to a better conclusion than I am now. And Pathfinder helped me realize that. It was through the relationships that I made playing Pathfinder that I was able to reevaluate what success meant for me in my life. So, yes, Pathfinder may have ruined the life that I had planned for myself, but in doing so, it allowed me to reflect on what was truly important to me and gave me a chance to achieve it, and I couldn't be more thankful for it.